Continue to follow developing news. Aviation investigators say turbulence did not cause the death of a passenger on a private plane that was diverted to Bradley earlier this month. The NTSB says the plane experienced about 4 times the pull of gravity when pilots disabled a setting used to stabilize the aircraft. Investigators said the plane pitched up and down like a roller coaster several times before one of the pilots regained control manually. That's when another passenger reported Dana Hyde's injuries to the pilot. A previous report attributed Hyde's death to violent movements of the aircraft. The report also does not specify whether Hyde was seated or if she was wearing a seatbelt. We have the full report on our website, WFSB.com.